Alright, good morning, people of YouTube. This time we are back with another deck profile. This time we have a deck that I am super excited to try once we get the 2.5 expansion in the Digimon card game. This is a deck that I am calling Cross Ranger. It could be called something else in Japan, I don't know. This deck was heavily inspired by a list that I saw on one of East's videos, like 3 months ago at this point. But they didn't have access to Medieval Gallant or Zephaga Ace, and so this is definitely an updated build. I really like the direction that this deck is going. That list was playing cards like Leopardmon and Leopardmon X to get some free summons of bodies like these level 4s, and even Cherubimon Ace, which would allow you to go super wide, control the board, bounce things, spread DP reduction, all that jazz. It's a really effective way to play the deck. However, there are a couple problems with the strategy like that. First off is floodgates. And this deck has an effective way to deal with those in the Shooting Starmon from BT20. Another problem that a deck like that struggles with is finding the right pieces, and the fact that if your opponent isn't going super wide, you're kind of missing some of the value on some of those effects. So why not just kind of go all in into the beatdown strategy and threaten some really powerful aces that can be used both offensively and defensively. So if you like this kind of content, make sure you guys like and subscribe. Without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the main concepts of what made this deck even a thing in the first place, right? So with the addition of these level 4s in BT20, this Ballista and the Dorulumon, whenever you play them, you are allowed to digivolve into their respective level 5s from underneath one of your Tamers at no cost, which is really neat. So let's say I play like maximum value. I'm playing Zenjiro to play this Ballistamon for free, so the Zenjiro costs 3 memory, and then I played a Crossheart dude, so I can tap this, gain a memory. So that's for 2 total. Then this Ballista is going to trigger, and it's going to evolve into this Ultra Ballistamon from under one of my other Tamers, and that's going to be 4-0, so I've spent 2 memory total, and I've gone into a level 5 and gotten a Tamer out of it, right? Now, if that passes turn, this has blanket immunity from being returned to hand or deck, and it's plus 3,000 and is a blocker off of the inheritable effect, which is super good already, right? But not only that, but you threaten aces. You have Cherubi Ace, Shadow Serathi, and the new Zephagamon Ace, which is just overwhelmingly fantastic. I guess we'll go over the Jaeger Dorulu right now as well, since we went over the Ultra Ballista. What this card allows you to do is turn off effects like Magnamon X, because on play and when digivolving, you suspend one of your opponent's Digimon, and then one of their Digimon can't activate when digivolving effects and doesn't unsuspend until the end of their turn. So the fact that they can't activate their when digivolving effects means that Magnamon X can't regain its immunity, which is super nice. But not only that, this is kind of slowing down a lot of other cards in the game, which is just really cool. And the fact that you can go into these level 5s for free, essentially, and then threaten one of these aces or even digivolve into Medieval Gallant, which is a card that initial builds of this deck didn't have access to when BT20 first came out in Japan. We have access to this card, and this card is absolutely broken. The fact that this card combos so well with Shoto is really dumb. The fact that we gain value from playing Shoto as just a card that gives us extra memory, and the fact that the new Zephagamon Ace can digivolve over Medieval Gallant as well as one of these level 5s that we're playing for free, it's pretty nice. So, very quickly, Zephagamon Ace is a card with a bunch of keywords. It's got Piercing, Vortex, and Blocker. It's got an on-play and when digivolving that lets you suspend one Digimon. Then, for every 2 suspended Digimon, you may return one of your opponent's suspended Digimon to the bottom of the deck. So this is, if your opponent is playing Purple Hybrid, if you get 2 level 5 dudes in play, they can't change the color of both of them at the same time. So one of the ways that you can turn off their big loop is by either de-digivolving the Velgr down into the Dusk and then killing it there so that you don't have the Dusk inheritable, in which case the Shadow Seraphi comes in clutch. Or you can just get rid of it and just return it to the bottom of the deck in a way that isn't deleting it, in which case this Zephagamon Ace is really good as well. You can suspend itself, and then its all turns will trigger that says when any Digimon suspends, you may unsuspend this Digimon, and that's just super good. And again, this black text box means that even if your opponent is changing your colors, Medieval Gallant can still ace into this, which is super nice. And yeah, this is just a really cool addition to the deck. I really, really like what it does. And the ability to help you play into some of your worst matchups is pretty key. So speaking of cards that give you a hard time, like Velgr, we also run into some issues against Floodgates, right? Let's say our opponent has a Psychmon or a Solarmon or one of those cards that say we can't reduce play cost. Well, that's just fine. We can promote the Starmons, swing at our opponent's security. If this goes away, then we get to play the Shooting Starmon from under one of our Tamers, and this card will let us give a Digimon minus 3k, and that's super nice. This is an all turns effect as well, so if it lives, then you are able to continue triggering this, but it says if your Crossheart Digimon is played, then one of your opponent's Digimon gets Sec Attack minus 1 and minus 3k, so it will see itself. That is an all turns once per turn. And then on deletion, this card really helps you establish some of your cards under your Tamers. Because it has that on deletion, you may place one card with a Crossheart or Blue Flare trait from your hand or trash under any of your Tamers. So, side note, the level 5s have that effect as well, which means that once you get one under your Tamers, it's pretty easy to recycle. So, opening plays in this game, I've said a lot about getting cards under your Tamer, so you want to have a Tamer established pretty early. The best one that you can play is Analog Youth, because this is going to help you dig for more pieces, establish some of the cards in your trash that you want to start tucking under, either with effects like Cutemon or the Shooting Star. And not only that, but this card is refunding you if any of your 5 or highers do actually go down, which is pretty nice in a lot of instances. And hatching extra eggs lets you get extra aggression. But Analog Youth is our primary search piece, and it's a Tamer, which means that our egg, our primary egg of choice being the new Pikmon, will allow us to have a target to tuck under. This new Pikmon says by placing one Digimon card with Crossheart or Blue Flare from your hand under one of your Tamers, you draw one. This is a win attacking once per turn, and it doesn't specify like a Crossheart Tamer, so you can, if your opponent opens, you can, like, let's say they play, like, training and put you to 2. You can Digivolve Uko in the back, spend 1, and then play the Analog, choke them to 1, and then on your next turn, you're going to get a search off the Uko. When it swings, you're going to get a draw. You searched off the Analog already, and then you can probably tuck one of these level 5s and draw again. And then you are all set up. Like, you have the level 5 under this. You can, like, Zenji or Akari, play that level 4 out, and you're all good to go. This Pikmon is also really good because you can start tucking these Ballistas, and the Dorulu and this Akari and Zenjiro can also play them out from under your Tamers, which gives this deck a really flexible play style. So, going into some of the card-by-cards, we got 4 of the Uko that searches our pieces because this deck can't really have memory boost. If there was a green-red memory boost, then this deck would flow, like, absolutely perfectly. We would just play 4 of that. But because we don't have that, we're playing a card like Ukomon. You'll notice we aren't playing the Shoutmons, and that's because it adds too many more moving pieces. I was at one point playing the Cross 4, because it's a really good target to play off Cherubi Ace and just draw 2, but it felt really clunky, so I decided to cut it, go with some of these Ukomons. And I'm playing the limited Uko to give us more memory, because this deck doesn't really have a lot of memory manipulation, so any little bit that we can get is preferred. I guess in that sense, I could play Louie, I could play Hidden Potential. Hidden Potential felt kind of win more in a deck like this, since all of our cards have Vortex anyway. We don't really need to keep turn after we evolve into them. And Louis can give us some extra memory, but it is a little bit niche. I do just really like this Uko package, though, because it's just good, it's just consistent, and allows you, if you're continuing to draw rookies, to continue cycling and continue getting more pieces. Speaking of our rookies, we are playing 2 copies of this Cutemon because it does help us recycle some of the pieces that we mill off of analog, and it helps us reestablish in the late game, especially if our opponent has Tamer deletion. This card is just really nice, and it was kind of slept on whenever this archetype came out, and for good reason. It was kind of bad then. But now that we have effects like these level 5s, this is a good card to be playing. Any way to help you tuck cards under your Tamers is preferred. That being said, you'll notice we aren't playing the 4-cost Tamer, the white one that's in archetype, the Kiriha, Nene, and Taiki. And that's because that is a lot of memory to commit for a very little payoff turn in, turn out. And not only that, but you have to continue to spend resources in order to continue to get the memory and draw the card. So it's just not worth it compared to an effect like Cutemon, which can just tuck retroactively, like, as you're done swinging. And then we're playing the Starmons, because on deletion, float into a shooting star is really good. Not only that, but decoy is good, and the inheritable effect to lower DP is also good, so that's just pretty fantastic. For the 4s, we're on just 4/4 of the new ones that evolve for free, and then 3 copies of Shooting Star because I don't have room for a 4th. And then for the 5s, it's 4/4 of the ones that we're warping into because we like consistency. For the 6s, I'm on 2 Cherubi Ace, and these 6s are probably the most flexible part of the deck. You could consider playing more Shadow Seraphi or Zephaga to improve your purple hybrid matchup, and I would very strongly consider that. But Cherubi's really good in everything else. It's really good into Magna X because it's got that lingering DP. It's really good into just big stacks or any deck that you are missing damage out against, because any way that you can get your aces to swing security for safely is preferred, because you don't want to trigger overflow not on your own terms. And so the ability to swing with Alliance is just really good. Yeah, so I do like Cherubi Ace. I would consider playing more of this. I would also consider playing more Shadow Seraphi Ace. Like, all of these cards, if you're missing some of these pieces, like, let's say you don't have Cherubi Ace, you could easily substitute it for these other pieces, or vice versa. The one card that I think is kind of non-negotiable is this Medieval Gallant, because this deck just ties the deck together so well. While you're beating them down with these little guys, let's say you're failing to see one specific combo piece, well, if you analogged into a Medieval Gallant, then all of the sudden you are not in a bad position, because Medieval Gallant just threatens so much damage and board removal while you're chipping them down with all of this other stuff you're doing. And it kind of makes your opponent play the game state on your terms, and I really, really like that about a card like this. Speaking of playing the game on your own terms, we're playing 4 Analog Youth because we really want to open either this card or Ukomon, or some combination of that, or like a Starmons and an Analog Youth is really good. Analog Youth is the preferred Tamer to open. But if we don't open that, then our second preferred Tamer to open is the Shoto, because establishing this early is really good. Giving your dudes blocker is pretty nice, especially since they all have save. You can set up some neat combos with the Zenji and the Ikari. Or something really stupid like the blocker for the Starmons, and then play the shooting Starmons. And that's this deck kind of eats Magna X alive, because you have so many ways to just turn it off. The Jaeger Dorulu, like, let's say your opponent has a Magna X and another dude, and the Starmons is a blocker. Starmons blocks first swing, shooting Starmon comes out, security attack minus is the second swing. Magna X can never trigger its protection effect, and then you just blow it up. And that's really easy to do with all of these level 6s. And Shoto just triggers some really stupid plays. It's really, really good with our level 6s. Like, Zephagamon Ace is a, Vortex Warrior, I think is what it needs to be for this. Yeah, it's because this is a Vortex Warrior as well. yeah, it's both of these cards combo with the Shoto, and it makes it so that you can get a free unsuspend, you get piercing blocker, and you're just going to town. Like, this Shoto plus zephagamon ace can give you like 3 swings, and that's just kind of absurd. And then the last couple cards in the deck, we are playing the 3 copies of Zenjiro because I think this one is the most valuable. Like I said, it's hard for you to gain a bunch of memory, so being able to gain just enough in order to do the play that you want to do is most likely the route that you're taking, but all of your plays are super efficient, and Zenjiro just makes them even more efficient. So I really like what this card is doing for the deck. Not only does it play the Ballista, but every time after that you're playing anything, like if you promote Starmons and swing and then go into the shooting Starmons, and you have 2 Zenjis out, then you can just gain 2 memory for free off of that, and that's pretty nice. Similar to the Akari, this one just plays the Dorulu instead of the Ballista, but instead of gaining a memory, it draws you a card. So this is still good, and like I said, both of these recycle these pieces, respectively, from under your Tamer, so just playing these innately is pretty good. We're going to look at some of the other cards that I was considering playing just because there's a lot that you can do in this deck. Like I said, the list that I was originally basing this off of had the Leopard and Leopard X package. I was trying it out with Merva and Ignite. That was really fun. Especially if you are not playing the Shooting Star package, then you can play like the Great Memory Boost. But that build lost to a lot of the stuff that's currently in our meta, so I felt like that build was not preferred for me. I already mentioned the Louis. The Louis is pretty good. I already mentioned the Kiriha, Nene, and Taiki. That's pretty good. This deck would benefit from a memory setter. Ken is our placeholder memory setter here because at least this one allows us to gain a memory if we blow something up in battle. There just aren't a lot of good memory setters for a deck like this. I guess, sure, you could play the Mimi, but I guess there's that. So if you want to play a memory setter, it's like Ken or Mimi. Those are your options. Possibly the TK, but that's beside the point. Digimon Emperor is something that I'm heavily considering because it really helps solve your hybrid matchup. This is just a really nice card. Against decks that want to go as fast as you, and it helps you draw more cards, so that's always preferred. We have some big level 7 packages that we could play, like we could play like Death X or Quartzmon. Both of these are really good picks. Paladin Mode Ace is pretty good because it can go on top of all of our other cards that are level 6s, but like on most of them, you're just going to have a lot of overflow, so that's kind of why I'm not playing a level 7 ace. By that same token, you could play the Burst Mode. Burst Mode, at least, is a really good hard play because it lets you play a Tamer, which is just giving you more value, and then it's blowing something up, and that's pretty good. A card that I was initially considering was this new Meteor Rock Soul card, because it allows you to just recycle a card from underneath one of your Tamers, specifically a 4,000 or less Crossheart dude. But there's no way to ignore color requirements for this, so it would mean I would have to have specifically a red card in play, and it just felt inconsistent, and I'd rather just play another Zenjiro or Akari. So yeah, this is something to consider, especially if you're playing more of a Shoutmon-based package. We'll talk about those in a second. But some other red rookies that you could play, since your best egg is the Pikmon. If you take the yellow Pikmon out, you could play this Koromon and then play things like Gatsumon and Muchomon. Muchomon to help draw you extra cards, and Gatsumon is just a generic good Floodgate. Floodgates in a deck like this are pretty good, putting your opponent on the back foot, especially whenever you have things like Medieval Gallant. And it's really hard for your opponent to play the game under multiple restrictions. Floodgates are always good. So you could play mono red eggs and then go something like this route. I kind of like the package that we have going here. But we do have some other options here. Crimson Blaze, because we're on mono red, or we're on mostly mono red eggs. Heaven's Judgment, because we're playing pretty much every color except for blue. And then something that I want to discuss here is Emergency Program Shutdown. This card is super good if you are playing white Tamers this coming format. This card shuts down Tau Loop for a turn. And if you can time that perfectly, then you can kind of steal games off of them. And that's pretty nice. So I really like this card. It's something to consider if your deck loses to Greymon Ruin mode, or even if you're scared of things like Mirage, right? Because if you activate this early against them, then that's a bunch of that's a turn where they can't activate trainings or boosts. And they actually have to play the game honestly, and Mirage doesn't want to do that. So this is a fun card. So I really like this. I think it's worth considering. And then we have the Shoutmon cards. Like the Star Sword is cool. Can't evolve on our good egg, so why bother? The Dorulu cannon doesn't get rid of the floodgates that annoy us the most, and it costs 1 to evolve on our eggs, so why bother? The most important pieces to search in this deck are not the Crossheart cards. Like, we don't want to be whiffing on our 6s, so this Searcher Shoutmon from BT10 is another card that I'm going to say why bother on. Same with the Cross 3 for the same effect, where we don't want to search. We don't want to bottom deck our 6s. And that leaves, like, this new Cross 4, which I would absolutely consider playing. But I don't care about Digicrossing. If I was playing more Cherubi Aces, I would actually play the Shoutmon Cross 4 from BT10. This card is limited to 1 for a reason. Playing this card off of Cherubi Ace and then drawing 2 for free and then spreading DP reduction is really stupid. And yeah, I really like this old Cross 4. I think if I was playing more Cherubi, I would absolutely be playing that card. And that leaves the Shoutmon and Omni Shoutmon from the new package. This is a similar warp effect, except Shoutmon provides a rookie that can evolve on our eggs for free. So why am I not playing these? Well, mostly for consistency. If you start adding too many different names that are warping, then resolving the correct one in the right sequence is going to get harder. It's the same reason that Gallantmon still sees consistency issues, right? You have so many different searchers that are searching for so many different things that you can't really streamline that. So there are going to be times that you have the Shoutmon and the Alter Ballistamon, and you're like, man, if this level 5 was different, then I could actually warp, you know? It's like the Guilmon that searches for the X antibody, and then you whiff on the Growlmon, and then you play the one that searches the Tocado, and then you whiff on your Gallantmon piece. It's like, I don't want to run into that situation, so I'd rather streamline the deck as much as possible. And all this card really does for us is blow up a Floodgate and potentially a level 4. And that's just not really worth it to me. But yeah, that's kind of the card by card for this. It's a super fast and relatively consistent deck. If you can draw your pieces in the correct sequence, which there's a lot of draw power. There's a lot of cycle with this Pikmon, the Analogs, and the Akaris, and yeah, even the Yukos. And like, I really like decks like this that can threaten aggression but still maintain a delicate balance of that defense and replace a bunch of their pieces whenever they start to go down. But let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Do you guys think this is a viable deck in the upcoming format? Thanks again to East for providing the coverage of the initial deck list that I based it on. And we will see you all in the next video. Bye, everyone.